We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
What if all we thought we knew of truth was sequestered upon lies and carefully manufactured science, craftily complicated algorithms meant undecipherable? We're tricked into denying common sense visual observation and orientation and led to obscure equations and scientifically established professional opinion in order to keep us from truth. This is Secrets Revealed. I'm your host, Zen Garcia, and I thank you for taking the time to join me and Kathy Dunson here for the next 2 hours as we cover what will be the third part in the series that I've been doing on the throne of God, the order of creation, and the possibility of the North Pole as being the cradle of humanity and location of paradise. Today, specifically, I'll be covering and elaborating upon the tabernacle of the sun and the dome, the firmament, and being fitted to the round circular plane of the earth. And so, but before we get to that, and before I start covering all of the information, Kathy's got some videos that she would like to highlight, emphasize in connection to this particular topic, and then also an intriguing piece of news that she'd also like to share with you as listening audience. And so, Kathy, are you there, sister?
Yes, I am. How are you doing today?
Excellent. And thank you always for your assistance. And those that don't know, she is my liaison in chat. And so if you have a question you'd like to pose to me or a commentary you'd like to share, just be sure that she sees it and that she'll be able to make sure I get it and that I will be able to comment on it. But yeah, please do. I know that you are always covering and looking into all the news and, you know, the different videos that come to light, and that you're also quite adept at keeping up with all of the various hosts that cover and which focus on this particular topic for their, you know, for the different shows that they do. And I give you great props in being able to do and juggle all that you do and tying all this information together. And for that, I'm greatly appreciative.
Thanks so much. I've really been intrigued by the topic, and I've also kind of found a niche
Yeah,
where I have been able to take that research and send it out, you know, to folks we know and others who have wanted to get that information as well. And I wanted to offer that, and anything that comes up on shows here on Secrets Revealed. If you ever want to find a link or have a question, you can email me, and I'll give you my email address. It's Paralandra, and that's P as in Paul, ERELANDRA 77 @gmail.com. And this week I had come across one particular video. It's now completing a trilogy of videos from YouTube channel Odd TV, and he has some really good stuff he's put together. And that's his channel. It's ODD and space TV. And this newest one is called Epic Deception. His are about an hour long, and they're very good, well put together, and full of information. There was one other, I do, like Zen mentioned, I do take time to listen to the interview shows. It's amazing the amount of information that comes through there, often that you don't see in articles or posts on Facebook, but just a mention. And last week, Mark Sargent had another in his series of subject matter. I call them just technical. And this particular one was an interview with air traffic controller. His name was Dale. And so that was his Strange World show number 43. And you can find it on Mark's channel. And that's just Mark Sargent. And then another one I would really recommend because it touched on the topic that was huge last week. Could it already be the week before? But it was about the gravity waves. And Globebusters, ISS Live, spent their program talking about that, debunking that. They had some additional clips. I don't remember the name of that person, but it was extremely good. Bob, who is a regular there, was talking about the fantastic craziness that science, we love science, but we want true science.
Right.
And they've put, Jeffrey Grupp has said that, NASA does not equal science. It needs to be repeatable. And what else is it? Anyway, he was talking about this gravity wave. They called it a chirp, and it was 20 milliseconds long. I was trying to find that information myself from the New York Times or, a primary article. I can't find it. So what they do is they bury that information. You have to go to source information to find it, but they called it a chirp. And of course, it's not something that you can repeat. And no one will ever be able to debunk it. And they've gotten so much money for this project. The LIGO, I can't remember exactly what the name was, but they've also got, it's LIGO. They've got multiple installations of this thing. They've got billions and billions of dollars that has gone to this. And I found in the New York Times article on the gravitational waves, and be sure you note that it's 100 years since Einstein had put out his theory that this existed. And of course, this theory has been considered fact all along. But in the article, it said that word of LIGO's success was met by hosannas in the scientific community, albeit with the requisite admonishments of the need for confirmation and replication. So they even admit that, but everyone, even people in our own alternative and Christian community, are saying this is confirmation. And so that is, that adds on to what we have come to see are foundations of false science, and it builds and it builds and is accepted as fact. And we go on from there. So that is a really good video. Be sure if you can to listen to that. It's about 2.5 hours long. And let me see. That was the article we wanted to talk about. I have a couple of videos I like on the Firmament. I'll probably drop those links in chat as you do the show, especially, if they apply. But they're from one channel in particular I would recommend. And it's called Jareth Knight, Jareth Knight. One he did kind of early. This was September. And it's called the Firmament Expanse or Solid. Now, I really liked it. It hasn't had a lot of views, but there's a lot of information in it, and it gets you thinking a lot of scripture. And his other one, Why is the Sky Blue? The Blue Cloth Theory and Other Attributes of the Flat Earth. There's another one that was out last week, and I didn't pull that up, but it was about the firmament being sapphire or some kind of sapphire attachment to that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention to you in the news was it was a big story. There's not a lot of substance, but there never is. But it becomes huge. And this one had to do with Planet 9 and has been equated in many circles as Planet X. And there's not much to that. But you and I both, and I followed you a lot on this, have investigated Nibiru and Planet X. And I had found something you had written on your Fallen Angels TV site about prior times and how you were thinking about that now. And I wondered if you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah, well, this also has something to do with another thing that I was recently looking into, and it connects to an email you had sent to me. Flatwater had done a video about the firmament as well. And he was reading and basing some of his information in that particular show on a book called Heaven and Earth by a lady named Gabrielle Henriette, which
Yes.
if people just look up Heaven and Earth by Gabrielle Henriette, there's a link that will be the first one where you can actually download the PDF and save it to your computer and read it yourself. But Flatwater was reading from reading from chapter 4, which is about the firmament and the dome, and she was talking about how the planets being placed into the firmament on day 4, according to the order of creation, how they are referenced as luminaries, heavenly luminaries, and how they, because they're lights and luminaries, they don't have actual bodily density as far as like the terraform of the earth. And so they're not like the plane of the earth, even though the heliocentric model has basically equated Earth as being the third planet, which revolving on its axis moves in orbit as all these other so-called planets do around the sun. And so before I knew about, the flat earth as revelation for model of world, and since now come to understand the earth as being the focal point of the manifest creation by the Most High God, and that there are no other planes that are like the earth out there. These planets are not like huge bodily masses which are in movement around the sun, and that are equitable to that of the earth. And so my whole thinking had to shift, and everything. I'm sure as we've all had to reevaluate and reassess what we thought about the creation and the planets and the sun and the planetary system, the heliocentric worldview, all of that. And so, and also there's another couple videos as well that have been put out where people have zoomed in on, for instance, Venus, as, and the guy actually shows zooming out and how he was filming and zooming in on Venus from the bedroom of his wherever he was living. I think it was somewhere in Russia or Siberia, but and how it showed that Venus was basically a heavenly light. It was a luminary, and you could also see the sky through it, like which to me confirmed that it's close, and also that whether if the sky and the reason that it's blue, and the other references, as you had mentioned, the sapphire with the sea of glass, and the mention of the throne of God in Revelation and Ezekiel and Exodus and other places, which I covered in great detail in the previous show that I've done in this particular series. It was a few weeks back, the Throne of God show. If people are more interested, you can go there and get great detail on all of those references. But anyways, so it showed to me that these planets as wandering stars, that they're within the firmament, and that the waters above, which is my belief that the waters above are the reason why we see the sky as being blue, which is what we'll go into in the next segment of this particular show. But that that the planets are not what we had considered previously, and so I've had to reassess even my thinking on Planet X, Nibiru, whether it's Wormwood, and I still have no deep and concrete evidence on what Planet X is. Nibiru, Wormwood, because of course there are, even like the Colburn Bible speaks about speaks of it as being the destroyer, and that it's had previous passings and also engagements with the earth where it's affected things, and possibly could have caused some of the, like even with some of the things that led up to the flood and to the Exodus, and whether that's true, I don't know anymore, and I'm having to reevaluate, reassess what exactly it could be, whether the Most High allows it to enter and to come into the firmament, or if it's a body, if it's within the firmament now and always is. I mean, I don't know. These are things I'm having to reassess. But certainly I do not consider the planets to be anything like that of the Earth. And even if they are in orbit around the sun, well, according to my new understanding, the sun is a very small body in the same dimension and size as that of the moon. And so they're certainly not as big and do not have the proportions to that of the earth. And so I did publish an article on the fallenangels.tv website where I was, sharing, because many people have asked me about that since. And so I wrote this kind of 2-page article about what I thought about, having to reassess in my opinions now on all that. But I certainly don't believe that planets are what I had and what NASA is trying to push them off as being. But how about yourself? What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with what you just said too. I think NASA most likely is probably feeding that to us, and we willingly take that. And people get very excited about seeing these quote unquote sundog. Well, I call them sundogs. They call it second sun. And one thing occurred to me: why are we always thinking it'll be right next to the sun? Why would it be there? I mean, if we were seeing what people are thinking they are seeing, why would it be positioned right there? Why didn't we ever question, well, why isn't it, why isn't it like out in the, to the left of it, but it's always like right there, and you find it. It's some kind of camera or glitch of some sort, which, I always resisted before. I fought against that because I wanted to believe.
Right.
I wanted to believe. But with our technology now, as it's advancing, we're seeing what you were just explaining with the stars twinkling, and they're fascinating looking at the planets.
Yes.
We're seeing the same thing with planets, and you can see Saturn with rings around it. It's not defined like NASA. Of course, no planet looks like it does when NASA gets through with it.
Right.
One other thing you had mentioned in your article was that you didn't think we should take the fallen angels and the watchers and the Anunnaki we should trust them for anything. And I think in the past, I know, over at Tribulation Now, we would say, 99% truth and 1% lie. And, so,
Yes.
They would have some truth to what they were saying. And so we really did think that. And I think we just wanted to believe, and we would fit it together. And I always tried, rather than the experiential information, which really wasn't there and wasn't solid for me, except in a couple of areas, which, I think we were stretching too. I would look at the historical evidences and consider it could have been, it was a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but we would, squeeze it into, yes, it's really out there. But I'm seeing a lot more of that lately. And I think it's because you see these stories, Planet 9 out there, and it's just not evidence of a Planet X. And it wouldn't be next to the sun, like you're saying. It's small. Now, I wanted to bring up one other thing before we go to the break. There is a study that came out from MIT in November of 2014, And this is from MIT. It said they discovered an invisible plasma shield, which protects the Earth from radiation. It was discovered 7,200 miles above the Earth. And what was interesting about that, they also described it as having sharp boundaries.
Interesting.
And you think, what might this have to do with the firmament?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Because, firmament has the word firm within it for a reason. And when we come back from break, I'll actually break down and look at some of these words, and we'll elaborate on Job 37, where it mentions the firmament, the heavens being spread as like a molten looking glass, and look at some greater detail in this. But yeah, it's my opinion that the firmament is cited in Scripture as having a firmness to it, and as having a structure, a dome-like structure. And I haven't read your article. I mean, the MIT article, but I am fascinated, and so I will most certainly do so.
I'll tell you, that's one of those things. It had been out there, and I had actually seen the video because I watch everything that Crow 777 does. And so I had seen it, but I didn't connect. And a lot of these things I come back and connect again later. But I had heard Mark Sargent mention it in one interview, one show. And so then I was very interested. It meant a lot more to me, and I'm looking it up. So Crow 777 did an excellent video. It's called "Is It Possible to Go Above Low Earth Orbit? We Have Been Lied to." And he links this article also, and he calls it a glass plasma wall.
Excellent.
So look up that video. And like I said, anybody who wants information like this, or even to get on my email list, I send out, sometimes daily, sometimes every few days, just things that I come across. Maybe you've seen it before, maybe you haven't. I don't know. I've got a wide variety of people. But my address is paralandra77@gmail.com. Yeah.
Can you also mention your Facebook, because you do a lot with that?
Yes. We have the Facebook Tribulation Now, and we post a lot of current events in line with biblical signs that we're looking for. And also Sister B helps me out. She posts prophecy and visions and some news. And then Carol, she's in chat, See Joy. She adds inspiration for us and some other things. And then also Ms. Jackie, and she's in chat, and she's our prayer coordinator. Oh, and one more thing, let me throw it out there. We have a new radio show with Kenneth Beer. He was on with you early on. And our second show will be this Tuesday. It's on Blog Talk Radio, and it's under Bro Ken. And I think that's how you can find out. I don't have any more information at hand, but we're going to be talking about geocentrism versus heliocentrism this Tuesday, and it'll be at 4:40 Eastern.
Also, mention the show with is it Basil?
I don't know. We've postponed that, but I think that Gons Shimura of Face Like the Sun, his co-host. Well, I don't know if it's going to be on the Canary Cry, but he wanted to talk to us just to hear what our show is about and what we're doing. So we're going to do that at some point.
Yeah, so that'll be when there's a concrete date and time. Certainly, we'll be releasing it. But yes, I recommend fellowshipping with the Tribulation Now girls and women, because certainly it's a wonderful fellowship. And I know in my correspondence and my interactions and friendships with all of them that we've been, a great encouragement to each other and one another, and helping each other to come to revelation on all these things, and not just the flat earth, because we've been walking and doing this journey for a very long time, and coming to truth on a lot of different things. This is just the latest, and Kathy does a great job in sharing all of the incredible information that she does find, like even with what she's mentioned in this brief period. And so we most certainly whenever we don't have guests and whenever we have time and availability, Kathy will be joining us to share videos and information and news segments. I know that I certainly reap the benefits of all of her research by being on her list. So those of you that can and are willing and wanting, get in touch with her, email her, or go to her Facebook page and get on that list, and you'll be blessed by it, I'm sure. Did you have anything else that you'd like to talk about or share? And also, that particular article, is it a link or is it a PDF that you that we can download, or
It is International Business Times, and that it's actually ibtimes.com. It's called Invisible Plasma Shield, which protects Earth from radiation. You'll find it. It's November
Awesome.
2014.
All right, thank you, sister, and we'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for our second segment. In this part, I thought I would begin with the first 4 days of creation, and I wanted to, because this will set the foundation for what we're going to be covering and speaking on as far as the firmament, and we'll begin with that particular topic for this evening, and also talking about the waters above and the waters below, because it is my opinion that the firmament being the barrier, the separation between the waters above and the waters below, that this is also the reason why we see the sky as a blue, and why whenever we read in creation about the throne of God, there's a mention of sapphire in association with the color, and also the sea of glass as being the firmament, the covering, the dome, like the vaulted sky, the covering of what would be the heavens below. And so we'll start with that, and then I'll elaborate in greater detail and guide this discussion to some specifics that I'll also bring forth in connection to it. And I'm also going to read, as I cover this, the first 4 days of Genesis, I'm going to read from the Targums as well, just to show you the differentiation and how it is that the Targums oftentimes do bring greater detail into the study of certain chapter and passages when you're doing investigation in the King James. And so those that don't know the Targum just means translation, and the ones that I'm reading from are the Aramaic translation of the original Hebrew, and this is the English translation of the Aramaic. And so in the King James it says, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." In the Targums it says this, as far as the first passage: "At the beginning the Lord created the heavens and the earth was vacancy and desolation, solitary of the sons of men, and void of every animal. And darkness was upon the face of the abyss, and the spirit of mercies from before the Lord breathed upon the face of the waters." The first day. "And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day." From the Targums: "And the Lord said, let there be light, and to enlighten above. And at once there was light. And the Lord beheld the light that it was good. And the Lord divided between the light and the darkness. And the Lord called the light day, and he made it that the inhabitants of the world might labor by it. And the darkness called he night, and he made it that in it the creatures might have rest. And it was evening and it was morning, in the order of the work of the creation, or of the beginning, the first day, the second day. And this one has specific to the firmament. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. The Targums. And the Lord said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate between the waters above and the waters beneath. And the Lord made the expanse, upbearing it with 3 fingers between the confines of the heavens and the waters of the ocean, and separated between the waters which were below the expanse and the waters which were above, in the collection or covering of the expanse. And it was so. And the Lord called the expanse the heavens. And it was evening and it was morning, the second day. Now, when you look up the firmament in the Strong's Concordance, it's the Hebrew word rakia, Raqiya, which means, first, it's used 17 times in the King James Version. It's translated all 17 times as firmament, which means extended surface, solid, being a solid, expanse or firmament. Expanse, flat as base or support. Another definition, firmament of the vault of heaven, supporting the waters above. Considered by Hebrews as solid and supporting the waters above. And so again, with it being, an actual structure, that it's solid and that it's not just some kind of invisible boundary up there, but according to the Hebrew cosmology and also to the definition of the word firmament, it has actual definition. It is dense in some way. Continuing with the elaboration, rakia, properly an expanse, i.e. the firmament or apparently the visible arch of the sky, firmament. And so being visible, there's got to be something to it. And also in the book that I had spoken of, Heaven and Earth, by Gabrielle Henriette, she was speaking about how the many authors and writers that talk about the firmament, they say that it can be seen and the shape of it can be seen during the like a lightning storm, and that the lightning will, when it expands, it will stretch out according to the shape of the firmament. And so with that in mind, if you go and you look at some video of a lightning storm during night, that often it does seem to follow along a path instead of going upwards beyond this particular firmament, this expanse, this kind of dome, that it will follow according to the dimensions, to this to the shape of it. And so it gives you an idea as to the definition of this particular structure. And so, that's something that you can take a look at yourself. All right. The Hebrew word for heavens is shamayim, which spelled Shamayim. It's found in the Strongs or in the scriptures 420 times. It's translated 398 times as heaven, 21 times as air, and 1 time as astrologers. It also means this. The biblical usage for Shamayim, or the heavens, is in reference to heaven, the heavens or the sky, the visible heavens or sky, as the abode of the stars, as the visible universe, the sky or atmosphere, or heaven as the abode of God. Strong's definition: dual of an unused singular shamay, which I guess shamay means heaven, from an unused root meaning to be lofty, the sky as a loft. The dual perhaps alluding to the visible arch in which the clouds move, as well as to the higher ether where the celestial bodies revolve. Air, astrologer, or heavens. And so you see, you are given the idea, according to the Hebrew and to the Genesis order of creation, that with the earth being created first as foundation, and as I've covered in previous shows, and showing that basically like Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22, where it speaks of he that sitteth on the circle of the earth, speaking about the Most High God. And I elaborated on this in the show previous to this one on the throne of God, how it was that the Most High, at the very North Pole, at the center of this dome, that there's an opening, as referenced in the sides of the north. In the Isaiah 14 passage, where Lucifer says that he's going to exalt himself above the stars of God and sit upon the mount of God, on the throne of God, in the sides of the north. And so the north, if you think of the circle of the earth and the North Pole as being the exact center, the exact bullseye center of this circular plane, well, then that would be where the throne of God would be located. The Most High's throne would be exactly above the sides of the north. And so, which is, we find that repeated over and over. And I do recommend people check out that show on paradise, the three heavens, and the throne of God, because I bring forth a lot of passages which I'll link to this, which, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, but certainly there's understanding in this way, and that many people are being brought to this as revelation now that that the Most High is leading to many people to this understanding. And so back to the third day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and the herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the third day. All right. And the Lord said from the Targums, "Let the lower waters which remained under the heavens, under the firmament, under the enclosure, be gathered together into one place, and the earth be dried, that the land may be visible." And it was so. And the Lord called the dry land the earth, and the place of the assemblage of the waters called he the seas. And the Lord saw that it was good. And the Lord said, "Let the earth increase the grassy herb, whose seed seedeth, and the fruit tree making fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. And the earth produced grasses and herbage, whose seeds seedeth, and the tree making fruit after its kind. And the Lord saw that it was good. And it was evening, and it was morning, the third day. Now, it's my opinion that when you have the earth as foundation and being incised on the waters of the deep, and the earth, the dry land appearing, well, pretty much all the waters, all the rivers, all the oceans, all the seas, the way that the rain cycles, evaporates, rises into the air, gathers together as storm clouds, and then rains down upon the earth. All of the waters are tied together in cycle and in circle. And then when you begin to study according to the description of the polar north, especially by that the testimony of Mercator to John D. in, I believe it was that letter, the 1579 letter to John D., where Mercator speaks about the testimony of not only the Arthurian King Arthur and his men, but others that after him also followed and did exploration where they went to the polar north, that there's a description of a whirlpool and also of the magnetic mountain, Mount Olympus or Sumuru, the Mount of God as referenced in Isaiah 14, that this particular magnetic mountain sits at the very center of the North Pole, and that there's a whirlpool which surrounds it that draws in all four of the rivers of paradise, and that they all empty into this whirlpool, and that this whirlpool drains into the interior of the earth, and that this is the fountain of the deep, and that it leads into the abyss, and that Sheol and Tartarus, they also are found and apportioned a link to this entrance into the hollows, into the bowels of the earth, and that also it's speaks about how the oceans and the rivers, they also are tied and connected to where paradise has its seat in the third paradise, below and near the throne of God, and that this is also the place of the righteous, but that that all of the waters cycle. And like in doing the work on the book of Atum and Ua, in the Thracian Chronicles, it speaks about how all the waters have their origin. They are purified through the roots of the tree of the tree of life, and how they break out into four rivers from the tree of life, and then they make their way down to the lower earth, to the Garden of Eden, which is where Adam and Eve were banished to when they were exiled from paradise. And that these rivers, even though they have their origin in paradise where the tree of life is, they extend and they cycle and they circulate here to the earth, to the lower earth, and even to that of Sheol. And that there's this huge cycle where the waters make their way even down into the interior, into Sheol and through Tartarus, and then find their way back up to paradise and are purified by the tree of life and have this grand cycle. The Targum translation for day 3. And the Lord said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to distinguish." Oh, wait, this is day 4, I think. Hold on. I apologize. Oh, yeah, I'm actually on, I'm on day 4, so let me read the King James first. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. The Targum. And the Lord said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to distinguish between the day and the night, and let them be for signs and for festival time, and for festival times, and for the numbering by them the account of days, and for the sanctifying of the beginning of months, and the beginning of years, and the passing away of months, and the passing away of years, the revolutions of the sun, the birth of the moon, and the revolvings of seasons. And let them be for luminaries in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And the Lord made 2 great luminaries, and they were equal in glory, 21 years, less 602 70 parts of an hour. And afterwards the moon recited against the sun a false report, and she was diminished, and the sun was appointed to be the greater light, to rule the day, and the moon to be the inferior light, to rule in the night, and the stars. And the Lord ordained them unto their offices in the expanse of the heavens to give forth light upon the earth, and to minister by day and by night, to distinguish between the light of the day and the darkness of night. And the Lord beheld that it was good, and it was evening, and it was morning, day the fourth. All right. Now let me bring up something really quick that I wanted to look at. Let me pull this up. In Genesis, oh my goodness, I don't know how that happened. Thank you, Kathy. I apologize. I don't know how that happens sometimes, but anyways, so I was talking about the firmament and how it divides the waters above from the waters below, and how it is fitted. Oh goodness, that went by fast. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Just want to cover a couple things, and then we'll go into the other portion as far as the tabernacle of the sun. It's amazing to me how time just flies by so fast. But in looking at the lights, when you look up the word light or luminary, it's referencing the stars. They're also counted as these lights, these luminaries, and in the Strong's it just properly a luminous body or a luminary, abstractly light as an element, figuratively brightness, cheerfulness, specifically a chandelier, bright light. And so, in my opinion, that's exactly what the planets, the stars, they are referenced as being lights, these heavenly luminaries, and that there's no terraform associated to them. And with the waters above and the waters below being the firmament, being the division, the barrier between these two bodies of water, that basically there's a sea or an ocean above and a sea and an ocean below. And that what I was referencing with the waters of the ocean above being even the origin for the waters here on the earth, the lower part of the lower heavens, even through the enclosure, through this barrier, that perhaps there's this opening, that at the sides of the north, and where the whirlpool is, and that not only does the whirlpool drain down into Sheol and to Tartarus and to the lower parts of the earth, but that perhaps there's an opening too in the dome or the enclosure, and that there's this portal that allows not only the angels, like in Jacob's vision of the angels ascending and descending on a ladder, and there's a reference even in the Thracian, the book of Atum and Ua, speaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that it was also a portal, and that when they entered into it, when they were in paradise, they entered into this tree, and they came out and once they were in a fallen state also, they came out in the cave of treasures, and that the cave of treasures is associated also to the Mount of God, that they had lived on what would be referenced as, like the magnetic mountain, or the mountain of God, that the cave of treasures, that was their place. And when they came out of this portal, they found themselves there near that particular area. And then, they were forced to live on the east side of the mountain of God, and instead of directly in the pole of north. And there's also a mention as to why the Most High chose the east side in that particular text. I don't have that before me right now, but and so it could be a reason that the waters above are why we see the sky as being blue. And there was a video that we had talked about and that Kathy had located for me, which was speaking about how if you take a bubble and you have it in a watery medium, you have this bubble in water, and then you send a sound frequency into it, it collapses this bubble and it forms a light. It will create a light. I know Kathy knows what I'm talking about, and so she'll be able to give that video, share that video with those of you in the chat room. But it could be that what we think of as a vacuum, as outer space, that this is actually an ocean, and that rather than it being a vacuum, it is actually an ocean, and that there's water, encompassing even the outside of the firmament. And that the reason we see the stars in the manner that we do as the lights and the projections of these heavenly luminaries is because they are contained in a watery medium. And you'll understand more of what I'm actually speculating upon when you watch this particular video. But it could be that the stars and the planets, that because they are contained in the sea above and the waters above, that they are these sacred patterns, this sacred geometric patterns, which with, because it in not only the Sefer Yetzirah, but in other books, it speaks about how God, through the Word, the Most High God, through the Word, the Son, He spoke creation into being. And that if you speak in that particular way, and that there's these, these watery, again, this sea above, that it certainly could create the stars and the lights and the planets in the way that we see them, and that the Most High's voice, the sound, the frequency would certainly, in interacting with this water medium, it would create the stars in the way that we see them. And so, Kathy told me that the name of the video is called The Frequency of the Heavens, and that it actually has footage of actual stars and planets. It's put out by Ashley Webster. Sonoluminescence, bioluminescence, harmonic resonance of water, light, and the electromagnetic firmament of the waters above. And so check out that video and you'll totally understand what I'm saying. Those of you that don't have access to the chat room, you'll be able to keyword search it in that way. Sonoluminescence, the harmonic resonance of water, light, and the electromagnetic firmament of the waters above. And so it's my opinion that, that there could be absolutely something more to this, and that rather than there being a vacuum up there, that there's an ocean. And to give a little bit, to be a confirming witness to this, I'm going to read something from the book of Enoch, which also elaborates on these waters above and their connection to the flood. It says this. This is from Enoch chapter 88, verse 2. It says, "Again I lifted up my eyes towards heaven and saw a lofty roof. Above it were 7 cataracts." These are openings. Cataracts are openings, "which poured forth on a certain village much water. Again I looked, and behold, there were fountains open on the earth in that large village. The water began to boil up and rose over the earth." Let me explain this also. The portion that this is from is called the dream vision, Enoch's dream vision. And my friend Rob Skiba, he references this as the animal farm parable, because Enoch receives a vision where he describes Adam and Eve as being bulls, and the children born to them as being, oxen and calves, things like that. And then he also speaks about the angels as being stars that fell from the heavens. And so there's all this symbolism. And so that's why when I'm reading, this particular portion, these passages, you have to understand it as that. This isn't literal, but this is metaphorical. All right. And so continuing. "Cataracts which poured forth on a certain village much water. Again I looked, and behold, there were fountains open on the earth in that large village. The water began to boil up and rose over the earth, so that the village was not seen, while its whole soil was covered with water. Much water was over it, darkness and clouds. Then I surveyed the height of the waters, and it was elevated above the village. It flowed over the village and stood higher than the earth. Then all the cows which were collected there," this is, the cows are referencing people, "which were collected there while I looked on them, were drowned, swallowed up, and destroyed in the water. But the ship floated above it. All the cows, the elephants, the camels, and the asses," that's actually a reference to some of the hybrid children that were created by the fallen angels mating with the daughters of humanity, the daughters of Cain, and the different kinds of hybrids that came forth. "All the cows, the elephants, the camels, and the asses were drowned on the earth, and all the cattle." The cattle is reference to humanity. "Nor could I perceive them, neither were they able to get out, but perished and sunk into the deep. Again I looked in the vision until those cataracts from that lofty roof," again that's a reference to the firmament, the lofty roof, "were removed, and the fountains of the earth became equalized, while other depths were opened, into which the water began to descend until the dry ground appeared. The ship remained on the earth, the darkness receded, and it became light." And so you have here in Enoch's vision, this animal farm parable, a reference to the firmament as being a lofty roof. And, a roof has a physicality to it. And if it was just a interdimensional barrier, then I'm sure that Enoch would have referenced it as something completely different, not something that was a covering, you know. I mean, why would you, like the way that the heliocentric model and NASA has us believing that the atmosphere just continues on into even to outer space, and that the air, because it disappears, that it's just a vacuum above us, but that there's no barrier and there's no distinction, just somewhere as it elevates and rises up into the sky, the air molecules become so thin, and it just eventually becomes a vacuum. But that's not what Enoch is referencing here. He's actually speaking of the firmament as being a lofty roof. And again, let me pull it up again real quick. That when you look up the word for firmament, let me pull this up really quick. It gives you physicality. The Hebrew word actually gives you the feeling, the idea that there's physicality to it. The biblical usage, the word is rakia for firmament. It says extended surface, solid extended surface, expanse or firmament. Expanse, flat as base, support. Firmament, the vault of heavens, supporting the waters above. Considered by Hebrews as solid and supporting the waters above. Again, so there you have this visible arch of the sky, is what it says. And so there's physicality to it. It's not just a totally invisible nothing. There's an enclosure, a roof fitted to the circular foundation of the earth. And that's what is referenced. And when we're going to go into Job 37 next, and I'll try to save the last segment for the revelation that I want to share with you about the tabernacle of the sun. So let's go ahead and go into that, since I'm quickly running out of time. Oh, one other thing too, when you look at like three examples, Solomon's temple, Moses' tabernacle, and Noah's ark, you have it being divided into these three segments. And that is similar in that you have the foundation of the earth, and then you have the three, the heavens, the foundation of the earth and the firmament, and then the throne of God. And there's these differentiations, these distinctions in each one of those in the descriptions of the Solomon's temple, Moses' tabernacle, and Noah's ark. You have these three divisions. Now, I'm not going to elaborate. I'll just say this, like, the first heaven, the atmosphere, the second heaven, inner space, the sea above being the outer or beyond the firmament, and that this is also the sea of glass where the throne of God is. And so you see this pattern of threes being repeated. Like I'll read really quick Noah's ark. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With the lower, the second and third stories shalt thou make it. And so you can look this up for yourself. But basically, you have 3 levels of Noah's Ark, 3 floors in a section of the temple, and 3 sections to Moses' tabernacle. And if I had more time, I would elaborate. Just to say, there's the outer court, the holy place where the table, the lamp, the incense, altar, and outside the veil, the separation. And then you have the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, where the ark was, behind the veil. And so, all this is the same kind of metaphorical symbology, which is alluding to the earth and the firmament and the throne above. And this also with the waters below and the firmament and the waters above. All right. Now, the passage that I'm specifically going to be referencing is from Job chapter 37. And I want to read actually more, but I'm going to just focus. I'll read really quick this. It says, at this also my heart trembled and is moved out of his place. Hear attentively the noise of his voice and the sound that goeth out of his mouth. He directeth it under the whole heaven, and his lightning unto the ends of the earth. Remember, I was talking about how the lightning follows the path of the firmament, and will often show the shape of the enclosure, the dome, the firmament. That's why I wanted to read that passage. But after it a voice roareth, he thundereth with the voice of his excellency, and he will not stay them when his voice is heard. God thundereth marvelously with his voice. Great things doth he which we cannot comprehend. For he saith to the snow, be thou on the earth, likewise to the small rain and to the great rain of his strength. He sealeth up the hand of every man, that all men may know his work. And so, one other thing, the book of Enoch, it speaks about how the lightning is both a blessing and a curse. That sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. But oftentimes that lightning will follow when the Most High pronounces either a blessing or a curse. And it reminded me of, the times that the Vatican, when they made the pronouncement of, I think it was the new Pope, I can't remember, Petrus Amamus, and how lightning had struck the Vatican. Certainly seems like a curse to me. I'm running out of time. Let me continue on. Verse 15. Dost thou know when God disposed them and caused the light of his cloud to shine? Dost thou know the balancings of the clouds, the wondrous works of him which is perfect in knowledge? How thy garments are warm when he quieteth the earth by the south wind. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass? It's interesting that this word, molten looking glass, which we're going to elaborate upon, but I wanted to share with you really quick. In the Targum, that passage, molten looking glass, is referenced as clear window pane, which, even though it's clear, there's still that physicality to it, molten looking glass. And so we're going to look that out, look that up against a little bit more. First, spread out. When you look up the word spread out, it's the word raka. And it's translated spread out, stamp, stretch, beat, or made broad. And the biblical usage to beat, stamp, beat out, spread out, stretch out to stamp out, beat out, one who beats out, to overlay or beat out, beaten out, to make a spreading out. And so, the firmament being beat out, stamped out. So it gives you the sense of being created like a roof or an enclosure by the Most High. Oh gosh, we're quickly running out of time. Sky is the word shakak, and it means dust, cloud, fine dust, or thin cloud. It means a thin vapor, by extension, the firmament, cloud, small dust, heaven, or sky. I want to continue on to the word shazak means strong, stout, mighty, strong, severe, sharp, hot, firm, or hard. And so, speaking about the looking glass being created strong as firm and hard. Molten is the word yatsak. It means to pour, flow, cast, pour out, to flow, to be poured, cast, molten, being firmly established. Again, there you go. You have this continuous and repeated over and over in reference to the firmament, that it's firm and established, properly to pour out, by implication to melt or cast as metal, by extension to place firmly, to stiffen or grow hard, cast, cleave fast, be firm, grow, be hard, lay out, molten, overflow, pour out, run out, set down. Looking glass is the word ra'ia. It means mirror. We'll be right back. All right, mirror, looking glass. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. When you, if you go to thebiblehub.com or any other that speaks about that gives you parallel from all the different Bible versions, and you look up that particular passage, you get things such as a mirror of cast bronze, like a bronze mirror, a cast metal mirror, strong as a molten mirror, a molten looking glass, cast as a metal mirror, as one mite of a mirror of molten metal, as firm as a mirror made of metal. And so you get all of these things, all of these different verses and all of these different passages. But basically, it's speaking about the firmament as being like a molten metal mirror, and that it is firm and strong and established, not, just nothing, just air or, wind, but that there's actual structure and form to it. And so, and I know, because I'm going to quickly run out of time, I'm going to go ahead and go into what I wanted to cover in this last portion. And then if I have time remaining, I'll comment. I'll show some commentary. But, and I'm going to read actually from the Targum of Psalm 19, which, for those of you that know the particular passage, that chapter in Scripture talks about the tabernacle of the sun, and how the Most High had established a home for it, and how the sun has a circuit, and that the circuit is above the earth, which only makes sense if you apply understanding of it to that of, as Enoch also describes, and also as Solomon describes in Ecclesiastes, as the sun being moves, its circuit is in revolutions above the earth and around the polar north. And so I'll elaborate even further after I read this passage, but I'm going to be reading from the Targums. But for those that don't know what I'm talking about, please just look up Psalm 19 in, the King James Version. It's 6 passages in the King James. It's quite more lengthy in the Targum, but I'm only going to read the portion that I'm referencing in connection to the sun. It says this: "Those who behold the heavens tell of the glory of the Lord. Those who gaze at the sky recount the works of his hands. Day to day tells more of the word, but night to night tells less knowledge. There is no utterance of complaint, and there are no words of confusion, for their voice is not heard. The line of their conversation reaches through the whole earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them, the heavens, he placed a splendid dwelling for the sun, and he, in the morning, when he comes forth, will come forth like a groom who comes out of his canopy, and in splendor will rejoice like a warrior to run the course. His rising is at the ends of the earth, and his might reaches to all their edges, and there is none who can hide from his heat." All right. And so, as it speaks about in the King James Version, their line has gone out through all the earth, their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. Speaking about, the circuit, about the movement, the motion of the sun above the earth, and how its heat reaches. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Now, in several other passages, I covered and spoke about how there's other texts which are confirming witness to the implication and the understanding of this passage, Psalms 19, as being connected to the motion and the movement of the sun above and that it has a circuit, a revolution above the earth, and that it's not the earth which is actually, orbiting, spinning once daily as it orbits annually around the sun, but it's the sun and the moon which move in clockwise fashion above the earth, which I'm going to read a couple of those passages, and then I'm going to finish up with the revelation that I want to share with you. In Enoch 55, verse 2, it says this: "And Yahweh swore by his own great name that from thenceforth he would not do as he had done to all who live upon the earth. And he said, I shall put up a sign in the heavens, and it shall become a symbol of faith between me and them forever, as long as heaven is above the earth, which is in accordance with my command." Enoch 74, "And the days Uriel showed me the angel whom the Lord of glory appointed over all the luminaries of heaven, and in the world, that they might rule in the face of the sky, and appearing over the earth, become conductors of the days and nights, the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the ministers of heaven, which make their circuit with all the chariots of heaven. And so Enoch speaks about how all the heavenly luminaries, not just the sun and the moon, but all of them are found in the heaven, and the heavens are only spread above the earth. They don't encompass and surround the earth. They're fitted to its circular flat plane, and that this dome-like enclosure, the heavens being spread as a curtain above it, are only found above it, and the heavenly luminaries move in circuit within that firmament. Now, I've shown that in Ecclesiastes, it references 29 times. Solomon references the folly, like, for instance, the folly of humanity and how everything, all is falling under the sun. It references the same thing, that it's the sun which moves above the earth, and that all the heavenly luminaries move above the earth. And so, let me share from the King James Version. Now, the revelation I'm going to share is from the Targums, but I want to read from the King James really quick because we'll have time to do so. Starting with verse 3, it says this: What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. The sun also, now pay especially close attention to the next 3 verses that I'm going to read. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All right. Now, what I'm going to read is, I've never heard anybody speak about this or reference this anywhere else. And I just recently discovered this myself. And it has to do with these particular passages. But before I read it to you, I need to pull up one thing really quick. So I'll have this in place when I read it to you. But it absolutely was mind-blowing to me. And it is also connected to something that I could not understand in the book of Enoch. And that when I did, I was only able to understand it when I, came to revelation as to the flat earth. And so, all right, I've found it, so I'm going to read it to you. It says this. This is verse 5 through 8. Ecclesiastes number 1. It says this in the Targum. The sun rises by day from the east side, and the sun sets on the west side at night, and it glides into its place, going by the path of the deep, and it rises the next day from the place where it rose there yesterday. Verse 6. It goes along the whole south side by day and returns to the north side by the path of the deep. Round and round it goes to the wind of the southern side on the period of Nisan and Tammuz, the vernal equinox and the summer solstice. And its circuit, it returns to the wind of the southern side at the period of Tishri and Tebet, the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. It goes out from the eastern lattices at dawn and enters through the western lattices in the evening. All the rivers and springs of water continually flow into the water of the ocean, which surrounds the world like a ring. But the ocean is not filled, and to the place where the rivers continually flow, they return there in order to flow from the spouts of the deep. Okay, I'm sure that you probably did not catch that. So let me point this out. All right, let me pull up Ecclesiastes again really quick. All right, in Ecclesiastes in verse 5 and 6. The sun also riseth, and the sun goeth down and hasteth to his place where he arose. Now, in verse 6, this is the big difference. The wind goeth towards the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. Now, you see how here in verse 6, it attributes the wind as going towards the south and turneth about unto the north? Well, in the Targums, it's speaking about the sun, which in the book of Enoch, it also references this same thing, the sun, as having this movement. The sun sets in heaven and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. And so you can't make sense of these passages if you try to attribute them to the sun's motion according to the heliocentric worldview, because the sun doesn't move from east to west and then towards the north and then back towards the east. When you picture the description of what Enoch and now Solomon is referencing here in Ecclesiastes, the motion of the sun moving from east to west and then north to east again is the description of it moving in a circle. And you can only understand that description is by attributing that motion to the earth as an azimuthal equidistant projection map, or as the earth is viewed on the United Nations flag. Now, if you are looking down on the circle of the earth, as is described in Isaiah chapter 40, he that sitteth on the circle of the earth, when you're looking down on the earth as a clock's face, then you can understand how Enoch would see the sun move from the east, southwest, and then northwest, and then northeast and southeast in an arc. And how when you add these four motions together, you have one revolution. You have a circle. And so Enoch is describing, and that's why it was only after I embraced the flat earth as model for world that I was able to understand this particular passage and understand the motions of the sun and the moon as found in the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries in the book of Enoch. And I was able to decrypt that whole book by applying his descriptions of the motions of the sun and the moon, the winds, and everything else according to that particular azimuthal equidistant projection map. Because it's only by applying them when looking down on the circle of the earth in that orientation and in that as a clock's face, that you can make sense of this passage. The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. And so I'm going to read again the passage from the Targum translation of Ecclesiastes chapter 1. And remember, in verse 6, it's not, whereas it says whereas they're attributing this motion towards the south and then turns about and goes towards the north, in the King James, it's attributing this motion to the wind. But it's not referencing the wind. It's giving you a full description of the sun's movement. First from east to west, and then from north, and then back towards the south in a circle. All right. So, listen closely again. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 5. The sun rises by day from the east side, and the sun sets on the west side at night, and it glides into its place going by the path of the deep, and it rises the next day from the place where it rose there yesterday. Verse 6. It, meaning the sun, not the wind, it goes along the whole south side. Remember that if you're looking at the flat earth map, the circle of the earth, it moves from east to west in a half a semicircle along the south side. And then in another half a circle above the north side. So, verse 6. It, the sun, goes along the whole south side by day and returns to the north side by the path of the deep. And so when it's night on the south side, the sun moving in this arc, in this half a circle above the north, or what would be, the other portion of the earth, that's when it's daylight on that side and it's night on the southern side, which when you look at my book, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, it explains it in great detail. Now, let me continue because I'm running out of time. It returns to the north side by the path of the deep, round and round. This is talking about the revolution of the circuit of the sun around the circle of the earth, around the polar regions. Round and round it goes to the wind of the southern side on the period of Nisan and Tammuz. Now, I explain, and Enoch also gives a description, that the sun travels through the 6 gates of heaven. From the vernal equinox, it moves north to the Tropic of Cancer. When it reaches the Tropic of Cancer for summer solstice, it reverses course. This is what is being described right here. The wind of the southern side on the period of Nisan. Nisan is when the vernal equinox occurs. That's also the beginning of the year, and that begins the season of spring. And Tammuz, it's in Tammuz that the summer solstice occurs. And on its circuit, it returns to the wind of the southern side at the period of Tishri, which is when the autumnal equinox occurs, and Tibet, which is when the winter solstice occurs. And then it reverses course and begins moving back northwards towards the equinox. And so this passage, these two passages, are describing exactly what Enoch describes in the chapters on the motions of the sun as it moves back and forth through the six gates of heaven, which is, what I decrypted in my latest book. And so here you have another confirming witness as to the motion of the sun between these six gates of heaven, and how when it reaches summer solstice, it reverses course, starts moving back southward, and when it reaches the Tropic of Capricorn for winter solstice, it then moves back towards the equator and the equinox. Also notice this, because I'm running out of time. All the rivers and the springs of water continually flow into the waters of the ocean, which surround the world like a ring. The oceans of the world, the Antarctic ice edge and border, it surrounds all the continents like a ring. How perfect. So Solomon is giving you a description of the circle of the earth, and not only of the Antarctic ice wall as the border and all the oceans surrounding the continents as a ring, but also he gives you in three passages, an elaborate description of the sun in its movement, in its circular movement and revolution around the polar north, and how it moves back and forth between these six gates of heaven, according to the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, as described in the book of Enoch, as the suns move it between the six gates of heaven. And so I was absolutely blown away by this. Also, the last portion, but the ocean is not filled to the place where the rivers continually flow. They return there in order to flow from the spouts of the deep. It's talking about the whirlpool. I mean, I was absolutely blown away when I discovered this in the Targums of Ecclesiastes. God bless all. Good night.